What's going on, Coldwater Nation? It's Geoff, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. Today, I'll be showing you how I tied a pale olive dun for a fly tie of the month for the month of October. While the pale olive dun is a popular pattern for anglers to use as an imitation of pale morning duns, or PMDs for short, the pale olive dun pattern can't be attributed to any one fly tyer or angler, as the pattern varies greatly based on the observations of those who came up with their patterns for this fly. But even then, the idea of these patterns to imitate late-season mayflies has led them to be incredibly effective at fooling the pickiest of fish. So without further ado, let's head over to the bench and get started on tying a pale olive dun.
Yeah. There he goes.
Oh my god, look at that! Look at that toe!
The squirmy worm is an effective and very deadly fly.
What's up, guys? My name's Brian,
And I'm Geoff.
and you're watching Coldwater. Let's rip some lips.
This video is brought to you in part by Upstate Excursions and by Black Dog Outdoor Sports. First, I'll take a size 16 dry fly hook and get that settled into my vise. Then I will start my wraps of red 8/0 thread about a hook eye's distance behind the eye of my hook before grabbing my scissors and snipping off the tag end of my thread. Now I will take a pinch of stiff hackle feathers in a yellowish orange color and measure those fibers to be about the hook shank in length before tying them in with a pinch wrap. Then I will continue wrapping my thread down the shank, stopping just before the bend of my hook before taking wraps up to where I started my thread before taking my scissors and snipping away the butt ends of the fibers I just tied in. Then I will take a handful more wraps of thread to cover up those exposed ends, leaving my thread just a little farther down the shank from where I started my thread wraps. Afterwards, I will take a length of gold Brassie wire and tie that in with a collection wrap, followed by subsequent wraps down the shank of the hook, leaving the thread just above the tail of my fly. Then I will grab a pinch of muskrat underfur, making sure to not have any guard hairs in my clump of fur, to make a tight, thin dubbing noodle before taking wraps up the shank, leaving an exposed area of thread about a hook eye in size. Now I will grab my Brassie wire from earlier and take wraps of the wire over the dub section of my fly before securing the wire in place with some crossing wraps over the wire. Then I will helicopter or snip the excess wire off before taking additional wraps of thread to cover up any sharp edges. Next, it is time to add a wing to this fly, and in the case of most dun imitations, we will use a stacked clump of elk hair. First, I'll snip off a fairly decent sized clump of elk hair before putting that clump into my stacker and giving my stacker a number of solid hits to ensure the tips of the cutaway hairs are aligned. Then I will gently pull my stacker apart, revealing the tips of those hairs and taking a hold of those tips with my left hand. Afterwards, I will gently comb my right hand over the exposed section of hair to pull out any underfur or hairs that are too short or didn't stack properly. But after fussing around with a clump of elk hair, I will take the clump in my right hand and measure the clump to be about a hook shank in length before taking the ends of my hair in my left hand and securing the hair to the fly with a few tight wraps of thread before snipping off the excess hair. Then I will take wraps of thread to bind down the cut ends of the hair before grabbing a size 16 grizzly colored whiting feather measured on a hackle gauge. Then I will strip about an 1/8 inch of fibers from the end of that feather and secure that to the fly, leaving my thread just behind the eye of the hook. If you don't have a hackle gauge, you can also determine the size of a hackle feather by bending it next to the hook, and the fiber should be about 1.5 to 2 times the hook gap. After I get the hackle feather secured, I will take roughly 3 wraps around the shank of the hook before taking tight wraps of thread to secure the wraps of hackle in place. Now I will snip off the excess grizzly hackle feather as well as any trapped fibers before taking some additional wraps of thread to build up a small head for the fly. Lastly, I'll take my whip finishing tool and make a 6-turn whip finish before snipping away my thread and adding a bit of head cement to secure all those thread wraps in place. And that's all there is to tying a pale olive dun. If you enjoyed this fly tying tutorial and you want to see more like this one, leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss a new video. That's all for now. Tight lines, everybody.